So hi everyone, I'm really sorry about this, but this one's going to get quite complicated from the outset, so I'll try and talk you through it. So first and foremost, this trip actually took place in April 2022, but I'd rather carelessly misplaced the SD card with all the film on it, and I've only just found it, so I'm only uploading it now. Second of all, the trip was to Florida for 2 weeks, originally flying out of Gatwick, staying in the Disney Swan Hotel for 3 nights, and then international drive for the rest of the trip. Unfortunately, April 2022 was when Florida was hit with a few hurricanes, and our trip was actually cancelled just with a day to go. After speaking with BA, who I have to say were really helpful, they were able to rebook us just a day later, but just with the change of flying out of Heathrow and flying back into Gatwick. So we were willing to accept that, did that, and got a few refunds for the cancelled flight, but equally for the lost accommodation and cheaper car hire. So we arrived at Heathrow, a bit jiggery-pokery with the car, and this year was the first year that we'd actually been able to trigger BA Gold membership in their executive club, and were able to check into their first wing, which is a really nice experience despite only flying Club World. The real benefit of the first wing is that you have dedicated check-in, a dedicated security line which feeds you into this corridor, and it brings you straight out into the gallery's first lounge. BA's got 3 lounges, or 3 levels of lounges. You've got your galleries first, and the Concorde room. The Concorde room is only for those people flying first class seats on those days. The galleries first is the next one down from that, which I suppose caters for a lot of different things, but mainly for people with gold membership and flying status with One World partners. It's slightly better than the galleries, but certainly nowhere in the same league as the Concorde lounge. So if you want to see a full tour of this, I'll put a link on the pop-out banner above now where you get a full lounge tour. But it's quite a nice place to be for a few hours for the flight. Free drinks, free food, all's pretty good. We chose to sit out on the terrace, which normally gives you some great views, but clearly it was a bit foggy today. But it does give you that nice send-off for a holiday, really. The other thing I would say is at check-in we did get quite a nice surprise that for one reason or another the plane type had been changed, and we were actually upgraded to a first class seat despite the fact only receiving a business class service. So it's kind of a half an upgrade, one that we were really appreciative of, but it isn't a full first class package. Not too sure for the reasoning. May have been gold membership, may have been because the holiday was mucked around, or it may have just been plain luck, but we were really appreciative of it. So after a couple of hours of free champagne and free food, we were instructed to head over to the gates. Today we were flying out of one of the B gates, which means a slight walk and a little tram ride. Only takes about sort of 5-10 minutes to get over there. But what we did find, and increasingly seem to find, is when we got over to the B gates, the plane hadn't even started boarding, despite what the screens were saying. So we used the bit of free time to pop up to the lounges in the B gates. These are traditionally very, very quieter compared to the A gates. But I wouldn't suggest you head over there until you know you're definitely flying out of a B gate or a C gate, as I think it's quite difficult to come back to your A gates if you need to. So just something to bear in mind, but it did fill a bit of time for us. And then after about 15-20 minutes of being in the B lounges, we decided to head down to the plane. Sure enough, we were boarding. I don't know why, but it just seems that the B gate seems to have the longest jet bridges in the world, and it seems to take forever to walk onto the plane. And then we got on the plane and headed to the first cabin. Now, as I said, I'm not entirely sure why we got the upgrade, but we're incredibly appreciative that we did. I'm not even sure that they normally fly this configuration of plane to the Florida route, so not sure why, but I'm not arguing it. It made for a great trip for us. Still business class food and the business class level of service, but in the much more generously spaced first class suites. I haven't particularly filmed too much of that on this trip, but if you want to have a look at them, check out the video on the pop-out banner now, which will give you a bit more of an in-depth seat review. And then we were taxiing back very quickly and heading through the murk of Heathrow up to the clear skies, and certainly getting into the holiday mood. So after a few drinks, a few movies and quite a few things to eat, it was time to land at Orlando, or MCO Airport. This is the first time we've landed here since the new Terminal C, is open. First impressions were really quite impressive, really new, really clean, really functional. I suppose there was a few downsides to it. It felt like an incredibly long walk to get off of the plane up to baggage and immigration, which is fine under most circumstances, but if you have some mobility issues, it is quite a big slog, so would suggest potentially looking at getting some support with that if you need it. Equally, when we travelled, the terminal had only been open for probably less than a month, I would imagine. The baggage reclaim took up to two and a half hours to get our bags. So I think it's just teething problems, but just something to be aware of, really, as I think all UK flights are going to fly in and out of Terminal C. Then once through immigration, we just went over to the Avis desk. We'd booked everything through BA, so flights, accommodation and car hire. So we just went over to the Avis desk, picked up the car, really hassle-free, and headed on over to the Swan at Disney. So despite being Orlando veterans, we've never actually stayed in an on-site Disney hotel before, and we've always struggled with Disney a little bit around the queue times and making sure we get some of the bigger rides done, to the point where we'd even missed some of the Avatar rides because the queues were just so long. So we opted to stay at the Swan, which is kind of sistered with the Swan and Dolphin, slightly off-site for Disney, I suppose, but quite nice hotels, well located. It gets you early entry into the park, which is what we were particularly keen on. And equally, it gives you an option of or variety of ways to get to the park, whether you want to walk, bus, or indeed pick up one of the ferries. The hotel itself was actually really quite nice. A few facilities there, I wouldn't say loads, there was enough to get by, so a few restaurants, coffee shops, bits and pieces, with probably more of the facilities being available over in the Dolphin, which again, it's probably only a 4 or 5 minute walk, but if you do have mobility issues or a large number of children, it might become a small military operation getting over there. But overall, the hotel was nice, check-in was really efficient, really quick, which can sometimes take a while in Orlando, or in America in general, really. But yeah, a nice place, nice few bars, nice few restaurants. Would recommend it, really, yeah. So onto the room itself. This is just a standard room. We'd opted not to book any of the more expensive rooms because originally we were only due to be here for 3 nights, but obviously due to the changing around the hotel, we actually ended up just staying here for 2 nights. Unfortunately, it's the night we had to sacrifice. The room itself is fairly spacious, it's clean, it's tidy, feels new, feels quite modern, all the plug sockets and USBs that you generally need, but I would say probably no frills about it. You always pay a bit of a markup to stay on site with Disney. There's certainly nothing special about the hotel, but equally there's nothing that I would moan or groan about. I suppose you're just paying for the privilege of being close to the site. So yeah, there's not a lot else to say about the room, really. It worked and it was clean. But the reason we actually stayed here was for the early park entry. So early next morning, got down to the dock, which is just between the Swan and the Dolphin. Waited for a ferry, which probably took, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, not long. And then we just headed down to the park to make best use of that early entry and I suppose the real value of staying on the Disney site. Transfer itself probably took, I don't know, probably 15, 20 minutes. Quite nice, quite a very nice way to get to the park actually, quite chilled out. Puts you out right by the park entrances depending which ones you want to go to. We went to Hollywood Studios as being a bit of a die-hard Star Wars fan. This was what I really wanted to get done first and frankly was really quite excited about it. So we headed straight into Galaxy's Edge and wanted to get Rise of the Resistance done straight off the bat. And I suppose the bit that really surprised me, and as you can see, is just how busy the park was already. So this is still an hour before the park technically opens, and everyone here is a guest of Disney somewhere along the lines. So we thought we'd get Rise of the Resistance done really quite quickly. We didn't. We ended up queuing for somewhere between an hour and a half and 2 hours to actually get that ride done. So the queues throughout the day only got bigger than that, I will say. But yeah, it just took me surprised at just how busy it was. As for the ride itself, absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I am a Star Wars geek, but anyone who's remotely interested in Star Wars will be amazed at the attention to detail and the immersiveness of the ride. Really, really well done. Certainly if you've got kids that like Star Wars, this is the ride for them. It's absolutely awesome. So I won't play you the whole ride, but ultimately I'll leave probably just a minute of footage. Really, really clever ride, really immersive. And like I say, I'm a big geek, so I loved it to pieces. So I'll just let you kind of watch this for a little bit and then come back to you afterwards. But certainly for me, whilst Rise of the Resistance was brilliant, the whole of Galaxy Edge has been really, really well done. Incredibly immersive, feels massive. I'm not sure it is that big, but it just feels it very easy to get lost, and the attention to detail that Disney have done is truly mind-boggling, really. Loads of other things to do there, loads of little side alleys and various entertainment and eateries and various things to do. So yeah, really well done, Disney. They're very good at immersing you anyway, but this feels like their best part yet. And as you're twisting and turning, looking at different things, making sure you don't miss anything, it's quite easy to miss the Millennium Falcon just kind of standing right in front of your nose and not really seeing it. Again, this model's absolutely superb, huge, massive, attention to detail is phenomenal, really well done. And obviously this is the entrance for the Smuggler's Run ride, which again we went on, and I have to say again it blew me away really. Made me feel like I was in one of the movies for a little bit. So again, really well done, Disney. Impressive. And with this one in particular, even as you're queuing to get onto the ride and walking around, you are almost walking around the Millennium Falcon. So they really put a lot of effort into making the queue interactive in this one. Loads of great things to see and do. And the ride itself, as you'll see in a minute, it's almost just like walking onto the Millennium Falcon. Really, really well done. Then after a busy day saving the galaxy, what else is there to do other than to go for a huge American steak? So we headed over to Shula's Steakhouse at the Dolphin Hotel. Not cheap, I have to say, but a really nice atmosphere, a really nice meal, very, very good quality steak. Certainly if you're a wine connoisseur, it's probably the place for you. So after a very good night's sleep, we headed over to Disney's Animal Kingdom to get the Avatar rides done as quickly as possible. We'd been to Disney before when Avatar was around, but the ride times were almost, or the queue times was 6 hours long, so we just didn't have the stomach for that, if I'm honest. Once again, Disney do the immersiveness of the queues very well here, which I have to say is good, because if you don't have early park entry, you're likely to be spending quite a bit of time in the queues. But actually really, really good. The Navi River ride, which we did afterwards, was a complete waste of time. I wouldn't recommend doing that. You're almost just floating down a lazy river in a tub with some lights around you, so wouldn't do that. But the actual Avatar stuff itself, really good, really impressive. And then after Avatar, we headed over to Epcot to do the other big attraction at Disney that we hadn't done yet. This was Guardians of the Galaxy. We actually had arranged it through, I'm not sure if it's a fast pass or what the terminology is. So we had a slot that we had to arrive in to minimise the queuing time, but it was still quite a long queue. So what I would say with this ride is it's absolutely awesome. Really, really good. But I'm not going to talk about it deliberately so that we don't ruin the surprise for you as you go on it. It's a really good ride and it's really worth the queue time. I think we ended up queuing probably for about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get onto the ride, and that's even with the express lane or whatever it was. It's not express lane, but I can't remember the title of it. But it is worth doing. Again, the queue is quite immersive, but it felt a long time, this one. But loads of things to see. If you're a fan of the movies, it's really interesting. Yeah, cracking ride that I'm not going to talk about, but you'll probably thank me for it later if you ever do go on the ride. Really, really worth it. And then just like that, our time staying on site at Disney was done, and we relocated down to the Doubletrees by Hilton at SeaWorld for the rest of our trip. I think reflecting back, 2 nights wasn't enough to stay on site at Disney. We didn't really get to experience too much of the evening entertainment and various bits and pieces like that. So the 3rd night probably would be recommended by us, I think. But we do like our time on International Drive as well. A few more drinks, a few more places to eat. Interesting things to see. So all in all, a really good trip. I was worried that a lot of things would be damaged or closed because of the storm. I needn't have done, truthfully. You barely even know there had been a storm there. A really, really good job of cleanup. And then I suppose we headed back to the UK. Again, just a few clips here of Terminal C for those who might not have been in it on the departure side this time. A lot more to do than in Terminal A and B. More shops, more kind of bars and eateries, etc. Because we were flying business, we were able to enter the lounge, but because the newness of the terminal, the lounge wasn't completely finished yet. So we ended up sitting in a, I don't know, a curtained room, let's call it. I think the lounge will be nice when it's done. Certainly, neither of the lounges at MCO have been great up to this point, so hopefully it'll be a bit better. But we'll have to go back and check it out properly. So the plane to take us back to London Gatwick was another 777. Unfortunately this time it was the normal plane, so no first class upgrade or no upgrades at all. And I think disappointingly the Gatwick fleet appears to be the eldest planes in the fleet, and certainly has the eldest cabin layouts, etc. So for our flight home it was the old-fashioned Club World yin yang seats. I personally don't mind them too much, but they're not as good as the new Club World suites, certainly. So yeah, thanks ever so much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like and comment and subscribe, hopefully. Cheers.